We're going to continue from where we were last time. We had done this part of the building of the library. I worked a little bit on just the facade, the outlining on my own, and today we're going to put more of the facade, each individual bricking. I want to show you how to do that, and perhaps the beginning of this last episode we might get back and actually show how the grass, the lawn is going to be portrayed. It's going to be interesting because I don't draw that type of thing in the same way that most people do. Some people tend to be abrupt with it and not show the detailing of it, but I really think that everything is important. If you're going to put a lot of integrity into the building, then I think the lawn should have a little integrity, the trees in the background should have a little integrity. It all should have a rhyme. So beginning with the front entrance, I had done the title piece, the public library. I had done the walkway. I'm not going to do too much work in the doorway and the walkway till the very end. I want to see how it stands out. In fact, a lot of this is going to depend, every bit of it is going to depend on how each section correlates to the other, whether or not I'm going to go darker, whether I'm going to go lighter. And I always work on the older sections first. I find there's more charm in those sections. The newer sections, I'm not going to criticize them, but they are a little bit more simplistic, easier to draw, let's say, and very similar in pattern. So we're going to actually put in the trick to this facade, the way to do it, the only way to do it, portraying it in black and white, is if you notice the actual photograph, each brick has a different color. Not a tremendously different color, but a different shades of reddish, gray, or brown. And it's impossible to translate that in black and white, simplistically. So all you're going to do is take the amount of stipple for each block, and depending on the intensity of the color in each section, you're either going to make it darker or lighter, and the way to do that is to either have more stipple or less. Can't think of any other way really for it to work. If you're doing watercolor, it'd be easy. You simply make it a different type of gray. But in this effect, the only really way to do it is the amount of stipple you engage in each section. And it's a bit nerve-wracking. So here we go. Each section is going to have a different amount of stipple. So I'm going to do that just a little to show you. Now, beyond the fact that it's nerve-wracking, it's also quite boring. But you have to remember, you have to keep in mind, it's the end result that matters. So I always say that if it's worth the effort, if it looks good in the long run, that's all that really matters. And it's a dying art form. Not too many people engage in pen and ink anymore. It's a hard way of drawing, and it's difficult to even engage kids. Kids would rather spend time doing video games, and for all that's worth, you end up with nothing. But this, you have a great drawing, and I personally, I find it to be more challenging, and I wish I had more people interested in this, but they would rather play video games. It's a sad state of affairs. Okay, so here we go. We're going to have one section be lighter, so I'm going to have a simple thing, just less stipple. It's hard to actually do that. It's hard to contain yourself, because if your first reaction is to go stipple crazy and go engage more and more, and there's no way you can actually make each one look like the photograph. The best you could do is assimilate some of the feeling. There's no way I could actually draw every brick. It'd be impossible. So it's kind of a magic act. You're going to try to get the feeling of the building. And I think I did the gut work. When I did each individual section, I had that in mind. There's no way on earth I was going to actually try to get every brick in its proper position. The best thing you do is just get the feeling of each brick. So you might draw one brick instead of three. maybe 1 instead of 5. If you were to get an architect in here, he'd say that I shortchanged the building by quite a few. I'm not worried about that. I'm only worried about the effect. I mean, when you're dealing with drawing a building to a reduction in size like I've done, something has got to give. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull a real stunt here. Instead of drawing 10,000 bricks, we'll draw maybe 100. The effect is all that matters. And you can see already with the little bit I've done that it does, the character of the building is what has been kept. And you can also see some are rather dark, not real dark, but darker, and some are lighter. That's what you want. And you never have them next to each other. You always try to play a game where one could be dark, one could be light, another dark, and then another light. Keep it different. Play the game. I'll put a dark one right here. I'm not even looking at the photograph anymore. I've done my homework as far as doing a pretty good representation of the amount of bricks. I kind of like the way they're individualized. So now it's just a matter of putting in the guts, making sure that they make sense. Stay with the compromise I've already instituted. Just keep the feel alive. And right now I'm only interested in making sure the feeling of that front facade is true to the photograph. Looking good so far. I think this older part of the building is going to be more challenging to me. I love old architecture, but you know what I really like is the fact that when we find old architecture, instead of throwing it away, instead of destroying it, we add the best of modern architecture next to it. That's why I kind of like when old buildings are salvaged and built on, added to. That's the best. I see several examples of that. The New Britain Library did that, and I think it's wonderful. The worst thing you do is simply destroy and not pay homage to the past. That's wrong. Here I go again. I put 2 dark ones. I'm going to probably try to put a light one in between. The way to do that is simply put less stipple in between. I still want some stipple in there. It'll look kind of idiotic without any form of stipple in there. But if you just put a little in there, the effect speaks volumes. I'm looking at this and making sure that it does make sense. So here we go again. Again, it's a constant battle. You don't want too much uniformity. The photograph does have situations where there might be 2 or 3 in a row that are dark, but for the most part there's always going to be that sneaky light one to break up the uniformity. I'll put a dark one here. In the space of 5 minutes, we've got an entire section done. it makes for an interesting effect. The fact that you could take a color section and re-describe it in black and white. And the effect is pretty true. So what I'm going to do is put in another section, light, dark, light, dark. I'm looking at something I did, and I did not do enough as far as the actual inking. I take my and go back over this and just add one more. Perfect. We'll make this one a little bit lighter. Make this one very dark. The good thing is, don't go too extreme at the beginning. Make each one relatively, even the darkest ones, make them relatively lighter. It's easier to leave it that way and do it darker when you have the whole drawing in front of you. Hard to undo something that's overdone. Easy to correct something that's just not quite done. That's working out nice. That's probably why I'm holding back a little, because I do want to keep enough available so I can make it a little bit darker later on, make amendments to it once the situation calls for it. So far so good though. I think what I'll do is I'll go all the way down into this area and try to get that done. That'd be very, because I already have this section done. So let's get this entire section done here. That'd be real nice. And you actually see more. It's kind of pleasing to the eye to see an entire section done. And what I want to do also tonight is, or in the next episode, show how grass is visualized. I have a theory about that too, and it works. I've tried it before. It's a lot like the way I draw trees. It's not perfect. I don't try to draw relief. What I'd rather do is draw my interpretation of what a grouping of leaves looks like. The same type of thinking goes into grass. There's no way on earth you can actually draw every blade of grass. If you get the interpretation of it, the feel of it, if you get the idea that it's kind of a interesting type of thinking going on with grass, you're trying to recreate the fact that it's organized chaos. Much like the bricking, organized chaos. It doesn't make sense, but they're all interdependent upon each other. They might look unwieldy, they might look difficult. Grass is grass. But if you do it correctly, there's nothing more beautiful than a well-manicured lawn, even though each blade is different. Each one either is fatter or slightly longer than the other one, yet it looks like such a beautiful lawn. The same thing is true with bricks, especially in this old section of the building. Some could be larger, some could be small. There's no way on earth you're going to capture the exactness of it. What you can try to do is capture the feeling of it. I think we've done a pretty good job so far. All right, let's go down and finish this section. You notice I left a mortar between each one of these bricks white. If you look at the photograph, the mortar is gray. The reason I'm leaving it white, you have to leave a little bit of explanation in there. If you made it too dark, that's one thing a photograph can get away with. But you really have to draw the mortar between each one of these bricks a little bit lighter. The fact is you have a line going between each one. It actually acts as a kind of a gray effect because it's so close to each other. I think I'm going to try to get one or two darker here.
Just let the light just shine on.
So we'll make this brick right here darker. Go a little bit darker in this brick.
Yeah, that's on the picture.
Only because we do want to have a little bit of variance. So here's where I could actually have one or two get a little bit darker. We don't want too much similarity. We'll make this one darker. We'll make this one
You got the leg of this.
darker. Okay, let's go downtown. We have a good section done already. Let's go down. If I can have at least half the building done, you'll have a good feel of what the entire building is going to look like.
I just go for 3 or 4 shots. That look decent. No, every time you turn off the switch.
It's kind of fun to draw this and play games with yourself the whole time you're doing it. Because any preconceived notion of knowing where each one's going to be, which one's going to be darker, which one's going to be lighter, that'd be silly. Part of the fun is to actually get yourself involved with the actual makeup as you go along. Probably keeps your mind active too. You don't get into a wave of indifference as you're building it. As you're actually building the building, in many a way that the gentleman who actually constructed or did it. In my way, I'm actually building the drawing. I think they had a harder time, but then again, every avenue has its drawbacks. All right, like I said, later on when I look back at this, I'll probably rearrange the darknesses in some of them. I'll probably make this one darker. I'll probably make this one lighter. I'm going to tell you a little secret now. I'm switching pens. They're both the same width, but I find that this one tends to, the amount of ink it expels tends to be a little bit bigger. So I'm using this pen. Both the same size, but every pen is different in the amount of ink that it expels. It's strange. Now it could be the fact that it's a humid day. That enters into the amount of flow. Believe me, I know that these pens work differently on cold days as opposed to warm. I think humidity has a big effect too. Shouldn't be that way, but we don't live in a perfect world. Things do, subtle things like this do vary, even in the world of ink. This is coming out real nice. I know it makes a difference when you're painting something. In the world of acrylic and a world of oil, a hot day and a cold day, the difference is day and night sometimes. And it's true in inking. Now the thing about bricking too is every brick has a different feeling as far as the surface is concerned. And a brick, will have the very face of it will look uneven, and the best way to show that is the amount of stipple you put into it. You could either show the fact that part of it, the beveling of it is off. That's why stipple is such a great thing. You do so much with it. You could show the fact that one's a different color. You could show that one is darker on the bottom, there's uneven surface. Stipple will do it all. Like I said, a lot of people do not like pen and ink. They look at this and they shy away from it. But every now and then you run across a student that just loves it. I taught this one girl about 2 or 3 years ago. Her name was Kate. And she took to it like gangbusters. She loved it. She is really one of the best pen and ink people I ever taught in my life. She's in her 3rd year in college now, and she's definitely, well, she's pursuing this as an art form, and I love it. I think the world of this being carried on as a tradition. Not too many people are following through it. It's very difficult. It's trying. And we're living in a situation where pen and ink is a dying art form. I learned this myself when I was in college, and I never look back. I love it. Okay, we're heading down the hill here. I'm going to make some of these lighter. As we get into a dark area, you want to make some of these lighter. You can make 1 or 2 darker, but not too many. You have to leave a little bit of play there. So here we go. We'll have a few more dark there. I think the next episode I'll show a lot about how to do foliage and grass. I have my own little theories on it. I don't think there's many out there who would like to do it that way. Some do. Some look at that method and they love it. It does make sense. But again, hard row to hoe. I don't prescribe to too many quick fix methods. I look at it this way. In the long run, the proof is in the pudding. When you see a building that's done, and in many ways it looks like an old stamp, and you wonder how they did that. Well, they used to do it by etching on metal. I did etching in college, and let me tell you, it was fun, but I like drawing better. Etching is a negative as opposed to this being a positive. It was a little bit more difficult in that sense. So I'd rather do this. Well, let's get down this pike. We're almost there. We got that whole section done. It's tedious, I'll grant you that. But then again, playing a computer game is tedious too, wouldn't you say? Most people wouldn't, most kids wouldn't, but it must be. Alright. Another one of my students, I taught him pen and ink, and let me tell you, never looked back. Well, he's into other things now. One of the worst things that you possibly happen to a 14-year-old is they turn 15. You teach them everything you teach, and they really learn it inside out. But the one thing you can't do is keep their motivation going. And that's what happens. When you're 14 years old, you turn 15, you discover other things that change your interests. And the good thing is, whatever you teach them will stay with them. So later on in life, if they do want to go back to it, they could always go back to it so easily. I've had lots of students who do that too.
It's that kind of so.
All right, we're not bad. We got this whole section done. Let's just do this. Thing to remember too is the mortar between each one of these bricks varies a bit, and I love that too. But look at the photographs, there's a lot of variance there too. I like that. I'm probably going to make it a little bit darker as this goes into a darker area, like between the gate and the opening. I think less light is going to affect it there.